Well, good morning. It's Dr. Jenee Walker here, and I want to ask you a question. I'm very honored to be with you this morning, and the question I want to ask you is, how is your flow? I was walking a patient down the hallway this week to my office, and I said to her, how is your flow? She is a very beautiful, near 70 woman who radiates light, has a beautiful spirit, and she looked at me and said, well, in my mind, I feel like I'm this vivacious, luscious 20-year-old, but when I look at my body, I feel like I have on a wrinkled suit. We both just laughed, but the reality was as we talked that the clock is on and time is passing. And the question is, how are we using each day? Are we moving it toward health and healing? Are we striving to be our personal best? And so I was thinking, how is our flow? How is my flow? How is your flow this morning? So I decided I was going to get up very early this morning and I was going to go to the gym and be productive because I know that I've read that the most productive people start early in the day and get a lot done. So I set my alarm for 5 o'clock a.m. The alarm went off and I flowed back into bed. 10 minutes later, my alarm went off and I flowed back into bed. And I said, now, my goodness, if we're going to do this, we need to do this. So I got up and I'm sitting here this morning to share with you some ideas on how to keep moving forward. And to do that, I want to share a story with you that is near and dear to my heart. But many years ago, I made the decision to become a doctor. And it was definitely a struggle. And I remember when I was in my first year of college in a chemistry class, I did miserably. And the professor looked at me as he crumbled up my test and said, if you want to be a doctor, that's a joke. Be a farmer and help people by growing food. And that thought never left me. And as I got into several medical schools and went on, I wrote a letter and ended up writing an article for Chicken Soup for the African American Woman's Soul. And my story is in this version of Chicken Soup entitled On Becoming a Farmer. And in the process of that, there was a book launch in Beverly Hills, California, and I was invited to it. Well, I am from California and I live in West Virginia, so I said, this is a great opportunity to go home. So I got on the plane and I went to the book launch in Beverly Hills, and it was an interesting event. I drove up from Compton and there were these long tents and people were walking around with flowing Afghans on and beautifully dressed, and the waiters had on the waisted white jackets and their napkins on their sleeves saying, hello, may we help you? And while I was there, I met the woman who edited this book, Chicken Soup for the African American Woman's Soul, Lisa Nichols. And I went up to her and I introduced myself briefly. But to be quite honest, I was a little uncomfortable because that was not my usual environment. So I thanked her for the privilege of being mentioned in the book. And I went back down the hill to Subway to Compton, California, and I was quite content and didn't think any more about it. Long story short, to my shock, that next year, I was in a nail salon in Charleston, West Virginia, and in walked, guess who? Lisa Nichols. Now, I don't know if you've heard of Lisa Nichols, but she is now a world-renowned inspirational author, motivational speaker, entrepreneur, par excellence, all the way across. Beautiful person inside and out. But back then, she was just beginning. So I went up to her and I said, you're Lisa Nichols from Chicken Soup for the African American Woman's Soul. And I said, I'm Jenee Walker. I'm the psychiatrist who wrote the story on becoming a farmer. She says, yes, I remember you. And as usual, when people find out I'm a psychiatrist, they often begin telling me their story. And so she did. She shared with me that she had goals in life that were unmet. She wanted to become a millionaire. She wanted to be on the Oprah Winfrey show. She wanted to travel the world, and she wanted to lose a lot of weight. And at that point, she had the ideas, but not an active plan in sight that was being manifested. And she told me she was in Charleston, West Virginia to do a workshop on motivational teens. So I went thinking, wow, one day I would love to do motivational workshops for people. So I went, and it was really quite excellent. And I once again put that thought aside. Long story short, about 4 or 5 months later, when Oprah used to come on at 7 p.m., I clicked it on after a long day at work at 7 o'clock, and I sat down, and to my shock, guess who was on the Oprah Winfrey show? You guessed it. It was Lisa Nichols. And I thought, wow. A few months later, she went from no plan to a manifested vision and a changed life. I said, how did she do that? I have plans, but they're written on papers all across my study, and I've had the same plans written for many years and no manifested vision. I said, What made the difference? So I sat there very happy for Lisa Nichols, but sitting there feeling like, wow, she's accomplished all this, and I'm still sitting in Charleston, West Virginia. And I went, what made the difference? And I was sitting there literally with tears streaming down my cheeks, and my husband came up to me and said, you know what made the difference? Not only did she have a plan, she acted upon it. And I went, you know what? You're right. So I said that I got up the next morning and I went to the gym, and I saw on someone's t-shirt, it said Nike, just do it. And then I thought, wow, just doing it. And then I thought about this quote from Einstein that unfortunately sometimes I fall into that category, and I'm sure many of you do too. Einstein said, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, looking for a different result while doing the same thing, he called that the definition of, what do you think that is? Insanity. And you know what? He was right. And so from that point on, I decided that each day I was going to make a very intentional effort to do it different. And I want to encourage you today to join me in that doing it different, to move forward to having a more productive life that fulfills your dreams. Because like my patient and like myself, and yes, like you, we're getting older each day. And each day we have to remind ourselves that we have this gift of life, of breath that everyone doesn't have. And it is upon us to open up the gift and live it to our best. And I want to share with you the thought I read this morning, and it was so powerful. And it's found in Habakkuk 2, a book in the Bible. And it says, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what God will say to me, and what I shall answer when he speaks to me. And then he goes on to say that, and the Lord answered me and said, write the vision down and make it plain upon the tables, and he may run that readeth it. And he goes on in verse 3 that says, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Therefore wait for it, for it will not tarry, for it shall surely come. You know, I believe that was part of the secret of Lisa Nichols' success. And if you ever get a chance, Google her. You will be amazed at all that she has accomplished. I believe that we have to, number one, as it says in that first verse 1, set up on my watch. That means to get up early in the morning, have your quiet time, to be still, reflect with God, and not only just talk, but pause and listen to what he has to say. The next step I think we have to do is to, as he says in verse 2, write the vision down, write it down. And I've been every morning getting up trying to write my goals and vision down for that day, to have an intention, as Oprah says, and then to try to follow through. And what was so powerful about Lisa Nichols was she made a vision board and she wrote everything down and began to, in her mind, imagine it and seeing it as already done. And what is so powerful is by writing it down, scientific study has shown that by writing things down, you're programming your subconscious mind to guide the conscious mind. It's like the example when you're driving home and you don't pay any attention to how you got there. You look up and you're there because you've done it over and over and again. And I wonder how rich your life will be and my life will be if we continue to not only think about things, but to visualize it and to take active steps to live it. And this is why, my precious friends, I believe in doing things that help us remember. So I made some ball caps for myself. And this one says, trust the process. That means that even though things don't happen the way we always understand, we trust God's process, his time, and his way that somehow he's going to make it all work together for our greater good. But not only do we have to trust the process, but I have written on the back of this ball cap, we have to live it. Because as we live it, it helps bring into our subconscious mind the goals and dreams and values and desires of our heart and translates it into the conscious. As the mind leads, the brain leads, and the body follows. And so it is today. I had the privilege of going to South Africa, and I was there the day that Nelson Mandela died. And so I was so impressed with the legacy he left to all the people there in South Africa and for also to all of us. And this is a quote that he said that I truly love. He says, the greatest glory in living is not in falling or failing, but in rising every time we fall. I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of falls in my life. But the good news is each day, as Lamentations 3:23 says, we have the gift, and it's a gift of beginning again. As Nelson Mandela further said, what always seems impossible is that way until it is done. It only is impossible until you take a step forward and start believing and keep moving towards your goals that it can become a reality. And so it is, my precious friends. Today, we're not going to just talk about it. We're going to live it, and we're going to do it different. And I even had a wristband that says, do it different, because if you do it different, it is DID. It is did and is done. And you know what? As we're moving towards personal best, I don't know about you, but I don't want to wear a whole bunch of wrinkle suits. I want to age as best I can. And Harvard did a study, and it said that the secret to aging well and to keeping a straight stature and shoulders strong and upright stance, do you know what that is? It's leg lifts. And so it is today. I'm going to go to the gym in just a few minutes, and I'm going to lift my legs, and I'm going to lift my arms, and I'm going to exercise and try to be my best. And not only that, I'm going to lift my hands in praise to God for thankfulness for this gift of today. And you know what? I'm also thankful for you. I want you to know that all things are possible if you keep believing. And remember, the more that you give, the more that you receive. And I thank you for the gift of your presence today. And I want you to continue to trust God's process and to do it different. The goals that you have, because if you do it different, it will be DID. It will be did and done. I wish you peace. I wish you joy. And until we meet again, many blessings. Bye-bye.